Welcome to Align to Your Design. I'm your host, Baeth Davis. Isn't it time to wrap your business around your purpose and bring your greatest work to the world? Each week, join me as we explore various biometric tools such as human design and hand analysis and how to use them to fulfill your destiny and align to your design. We will reveal how to do the work you are designed to do rather than what you think you should do. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Align to Your Design podcast, where I bring you guests who I feel are living their purpose, being of service to others, and having a good time doing it. Every show pretty much follows the same format. You'll meet our guest, we'll have an interesting conversation, and then towards the end of our time together, we'll have a look at our guest's human design. And for some of our guests, they're well-versed in human design, and for some of our guests, not so much. And this show can be their first introduction to their design. Most of our guests have told us that they have never looked back after discovering their design and continue to use that tool to guide their life and to guide the lives of their clients, their children, coworkers, spouses, partners. There is no technology like it that I know of. It has changed my life. And if you are learning your design, you are in the deconditioning process, you are shedding the conditioning that is holding you back from doing what you came here to do. So one of the things that gets in the way of living our design and being in our purpose is wearing ourselves out, doing too much, getting into the infamous burnout. Our guest today originally hails from Canada. She now lives in Brisbane, Australia. Her name is Angela Henderson. She is what I would describe as a live wire spark plug, very energetic, accomplished person. She's also an international award-winning business coach for women, international keynote speaker and podcaster, and she helps women in business get all the pieces in place to have consistent 5-figure months so they can move up to 6 and 7-figure years without burning out in the process. She's a very interesting background in a number of different industries and is also an award-winning speaker. I think I may have mentioned that, but she's won some pretty significant awards for being the audience favorite where she has spoken. So I think you're going to enjoy our conversation today. Please share this show. If you like it, please leave us a review. Go get your human design chart and learn that design and start living your purpose. So with that, I'm going to bring on our wonderful guest, Angela Henderson. Let's welcome her to Align to Your Design. Hey there.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
You're good. Super excited to be here today.
I'm very happy to have you. So I have a bunch of questions for you. You're now a business coach and you primarily help women entrepreneurs transition into making more money with less stress, less burnout. How did you become a coach? What led you to become a coach?
So 11 years ago, I was just playing on the floor with my son, Finley, and I just remember looking at these toys that we had been given, which were great toys, but they were battery-operated toys, and everything around me was battery-operated, and I was like, he's only 9 months old. Surely there's got to be other toys that we can utilize here to spark his imagination, his creativity, et cetera. And as an ex-mental health clinician, I'm all about gross motor skill, fine motor skill, et cetera. It got me thinking about different elements and different toys. And so I start researching. And from that, I was very interested about opening up a online toy education and toy shop called Finley and Me. And we started with obviously 0 products. At time of closing the store, we had over 1,400 different products, and we were one of Australia's leading educational and toy stores. So that's where it started. Through the toy store, I started blogging for the mothers who obviously were buying the items for their children for birthdays, Christmases, etc. And I started talking about like the loneliness of motherhood, depression in women, what it was like to almost grieve the loss of who they they were and where they were going. And from that writing all the time in that blog, I also became one of Australia's leading parenting influencers. So I was signed with Netflix as one of their top 30 influencers here in Australia and New Zealand. Bigger brands similar to like what you guys would have back in the US and Canada, Whole Foods, your Targets, your Woolworths, your Hiltons, your Club Meds, and things like that. So that was really great. And then all of a sudden people just start wanting to pick my brain or take me for coffee dates. And I don't even drink coffee. And I was a bit naive to what picking your brain was. And I'm a bit of a connector. I'm a bit of a giver. So I was like, sure, I'll meet you for coffee. But then after about driving home on around the 14th coffee date over 2 months, I was like, hold on a minute. I'm driving 30 minutes one way, 30 minutes back, sitting with these people. And listen, I love good company. Then I'm paying for my own stuff. I was like, this is counterproductive. And then I was like, oh, if I would have charged those people for my expertise, I could open up a secondary business. And that's where Angela Henderson Consulting came about, was just by default. It was never on the playing cards. I wasn't looking to switch up businesses. And then, now I work with amazing humans from around the world to, as you said, get all those pieces in place for consistent 4 and 5 figure months, and then on to those 6 and 7+ figure years, but without burning out, because you can do business elegantly and with ease and without burning out.
So what do you see as the signs of burnout in your clients? What are some classic signs that they're reaching that point?
I mean, the interesting thing is it can appear so differently in so many different humans, right? So there's not kind of stock standard, but some of the common things that I would see is they start to get a little bit nippy, right? Like everything feels heavy. Everything feels like it's a burden. Everything feels like it's a chore. They've lost that joy of why they even started. They also start to lose momentum. They also can get catty and just start bitching and moaning about X, Y, and Z. And you're kind of like, hold on, that's not like you. You know, you got a good growth mindset. Mm-hmm. What's going on? We can also notice different like sleep patterns. So sometimes I'll ask my clients like, so how are you sleeping? And they might say like, it's easy for me to fall asleep, but then I'm up 5 or 6 times in the middle of the night. And then I'll ask, well, how long has that been going for? So even though I don't use my mental health clinician, as in I'm not diagnosing someone, my skills from my previous job come into play quite well. Because if I can start picking up that sleep disruption, also some people can almost sit like on a hypomanic state where they start talking really, really quickly, or all of a sudden they're starting to work these random erratic hours. And I'm like, again, it's out of character, right? Mm-hmm. I also see eating patterns can change for some individuals. Mm-hmm. So they either reduce their eating or they can be eating too much, right? You can also see like things like they're spending money, like they might be really like frugal about it and not want to make any business decisions because they're just kind of like whatever, they're in the dumps, or they could be spending too much money, right? So it really can vary about what I see, but typically it's normally more the flatter persona that I start to see. They start to also withdraw from their social media presence. They'll withdraw from wanting to do their podcast. They'll want to withdraw from doing discovery calls or sales calls. Like there's literally not a lot that they want to do. So those are some of the signs that I see. I normally look at things as like it starts with a little bit of stress, like I could have been stressed this morning. It's, a time of recording at 6:45 a.m. And I might have been like, oh my goodness, I need to make sure I'm there and the audio is good, but that will go away. But it's when the stress starts to continue to eat away at you, kind of like a rotten apple all day long, that's when you know you're leading to that burnout. And we want to avoid, where possible, a full-blown diagnosis, because if you have a mental break, quote unquote, your brain from a physiological perspective will never bounce back the way it was at its original state prior to the breakdown. So again, we really want to protect not only yourself from a physical element, an emotional element, but yes, just from that overall, reducing the harm to your overall mental state. So yes.
Very well said. And if I heard you right, you were a mental health clinician before being a mom. Or were you doing it simultaneous with being a mom?
So I started my career first. So I'm actually from Canada, as you mentioned, but I did my high school and undergrad in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I then flew to Australia where I did my master's of social work. And then I did my clinical prac over in North Carolina. And now I obviously live in Australia. So before kids were in play, I was a mental health clinician working with predominantly adults in the space of looking at depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar, but I also did, some work too with kids on the spectrum. So yes, that's what I did prior.
Wow. And your toy business, did you sell that? Did it get absorbed by a larger toy company? What happened with that?
So what we did is we still have the Finley and Me website, but all the toys are off, and we still have our Finley and Me active Facebook community of about 70,000 members from around the world. And we are turning that into, I'm currently working with lawyers, and I'll be able to use that audience for my foundation that I'm creating, which will be my legacy piece.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, still a little bit of work to do. It's not easy because in Australia, in order to get registered for like tax write-offs, not as a tax write-off, but tax deductions that people are able to donate to the foundation and get the tax deduction, there's a lot of paperwork and application process that has to go through. So we're in that process at the moment.
Right. And what made you stop dealing in toys and move into helping people with their business challenges?
Listen, people told me early on in the piece, like, do you think you'll do this gig forever? And I'm kind of like, if it continues to bring me joy, I will continue to do anything. Like my podcast just hit its 3-year anniversary, releasing one episode every week for the last 3 years. And it was the same type of question. Will you keep podcasting? Yes, if it brings me joy. And I found that as my kids were getting older and I'd been doing it for so long, that going to the toy fairs, because I was in the from like baby to 7. And once my kids started to get past that 7-year-old age, I wasn't as interested because those toys, it was no longer relevant to me. So I believe that Finley and Me served its purpose. It helped me get to where I am today, and that it's okay to pivot. It's okay to close things down. So like I said, it's still active, but we're not selling. And for me, as I was approached by a couple of people to buy Finley and Me because it's a fairly lucrative asset, also with our email lists, our social media audience, etc. But I infuse so much of me as that brand and also my children in that brand that ethically I couldn't lay my head on my pillow selling that to someone else because I knew how much people were there because of me. And that's not being conceited. It was just about how I had built that community. And that if they would have taken it, they could have, but people, would stop me in the shopping centers, at movie theaters, birthday parties, etc. They kind of knew who I was. And I just didn't think that it would do what it needed to do. So I did not sell that particular business.
Fascinating. I love doing these interviews. Learn such interesting things. So now that you're a coach, what do you do to help your clients basically unpack and overcome their inner challenges, their roadblocks? How do you go about that?
Listen, when I first started, I'm very much about strategy. I think without a plan, things are going to fall to shambles, and who's steering the ship. And I think that there's so much chaos in our heads on any given day that you've got to really get that into strategy. But as I've evolved as a business consultant and as a human, I also think there's other elements in that. I think, as I was saying before recording, mindset is imperative in working on the internal dialogue. Spirituality is also an important aspect. And so for me as a consultant, what I like to do, first of all, is just understand that human being for who they are, what makes them tick, what makes them not tick. I also then like to go, okay, well, what's working or what isn't working? And then I kind of like to reverse engineer so we start to come up with a plan. Each client I work with is so different. I work with one of Australia's leading plastic surgeons, and yes, he makes millions of dollars a year, but for where he started in the surgical side of things to where he's going because of retirement soon, he doesn't want to keep being in the theater all the time or in operation. So then I pretty much stripped this whole business back. And that's what I will do with any business. I'm about building the foundational elements you need to build a sustainable and profitable business. And so the story I talk about is like that of the 3 little pigs. Most businesses come to me and they've got a business made out of hay or a business made out of sticks. It's structurally there, but it wouldn't take much like COVID, marital breakdown, a loss of part-time job, and the business would go. So when I come in, I strip it back and I start looking at product, messaging, website, funnels, like little bit by little bit. And then I lay a brick for each of those. And yes, when you work with bricks to build a house or a business, they cost a little bit more. They're heavier, so it takes longer to do, but it's going to be sustainable. And so that's really what I'm big about, is looking at not only strategy, spiritual, and mindset, but building a business of bricks so that it doesn't matter. You might have a bad month or COVID might come and it sucks and you've got to clean things up, or you might have a slight loss of income, but you don't have to go belly up and forfeit what you've worked so hard to create. So yeah, sustainability is key.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And so what do you do? What are some of the things you do to help a client get back on track? Let's say they've hit burnout. They've lost interest in doing their podcast. Maybe they had that number one client that was really 50% of their revenue, and that client left for whatever reason. So what do you do in those situations?
In those situations, I go back to saying do we need to step back first of all, right? Like, do we actually need to just have 2 weeks off of a holiday? Do you need to go and, I don't know, get lost in the Australian outback? Do you need to go to the beach? Like, where can we somewhat ground you again and get you to a place where you can start to receive and then take action? Because if they're in an elevated state or that state is too low, it's very hard to make change because you don't want to make change. So that's one of the things I always say is, what do we need to do to rest your body, your mind, your soul, etc., so that we can then start building up? Then I like to then chunk things for people. So if it's the podcast, so say they had a podcast, I might say, hey, let's start with the podcast out of anything else right now. I don't want you to worry about being on Instagram. I don't want you to worry about anything else. But the podcast, we know you love doing. It's easy for you to do. It doesn't feel heavy, right? As in, like, it's not hard for them to do in the state they're in. And we know that your audience we drive traffic from the podcast to your website. And then from there, we know that it's easy for you to continue to make money, right? So then what happens is we choose one thing, they kind of get back in the saddle, and then I can start layering additional things as I feel. I believe, and so I also consider myself more of a consultant than a coach. And so in my opinion, you've got mentors, coaches, and consultants. My thing is a mentor typically might be someone else saying human design, and you might mentor them on a particular element of human design. It's not normally formal. You might catch up for coffee. You still help, but it's nothing kind of serious, I guess you could say, how I define it. Coaching, I find, if you think about the true essence of coaching, it's about being able to listen and then being able to reframe and put back to the client what they've just said, but in a way that they go, oh, and have those aha moments. Consulting, in my opinion, is when people come to me and they're like, I need a strategy. I need you to get me from here to here, and I need you to tell me what to do. Like, so I still will bring in coaching. I consider myself 75% consultant, 25% coach. But because of that consultant role, I feel when I'm looking at people who are burning out or whatever, is that it's my responsibility to understand when to push the gas pedal down and when to ease up on the gas pedal, to help guide them and navigate what they're going through. Also, like, when new clients come to me, like I just started with a dentist, and she came to me January 28th was our first session. At time of recording, we're almost in July. And so she's been with me now for a little over 4 months, I think it is 5 months. And she had no website, no branding, no messaging, just this idea. But she still wanted to work with me one-on-one because she's like, I'd rather just get these pillars set up correctly. She came on board, and she's infused being a dentist with she's an child entertainer also. So she does a lot of live singing events. She then wanted to be able to go to daycare centers to be able to educate about preventative care for dental, but also make it really fun and interactive. And we're already hitting 5-figure months, right?
Oh, so great.
We could website was complete, messaging was complete, branding was complete. Awesome product, right? And that's no ad spend, no email list, no funnel. It was literally cold outreach. We drafted this thing that needed to speak the language to the daycare centers. So that's an example where someone's come to me going, I think I've got an idea, not too sure if it's going to be viable, but let's give it all we got. And she's killing it, right? After 5 months. So, that's an example versus someone not being in a burnout state, but just starting from scratch. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's great. That's just great. And how do you teach your clients to attract more clients and keep the good clients they have while they're bringing in new clients?
I mean, listen, I think the word authenticity gets thrown around on a regular basis, but I do think there's an element of you have to be authentic in this space, right? There's also a great book by Bob Burg, and I'm just going to see if I can pull up the one little element of it. So Bob Burg, he's a co-author of the book called The Go-Giver, favorite book. He was on my podcast just recently. It was like one of those moments that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Great man. But I also talk about if you want to surround yourself with great clients, yes, you need to be authentic, but you need to be leaving with value, right? And so Bob talks about the 5 laws, I'm just pulling up, of stratospheric success. And he talked about these laws, And that if you're not leading with value and if you're not giving first, then the type of people you're going to be attracting is going to genuinely hinder you. And so with the 5 laws of stratospheric success, I'm just pulling them up, and because I think it's important that the audience understands this, because if you are in this space about looking at how you attract these ideal clients, is he talks about the first law is the law of value. And he talks about your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. He talks about the law of compensation. Your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. He talks about the law of influence. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. He talks about the law of authenticity. The most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And the last law that they talk about in the Go-Giver is the law of receptivity. The key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. And so I'm very much about, you need to lead with value. You need to lead with giving. And so often businesses will try and just, again, they're only looking for the next transaction. And I understand when you're in the startup and bootstrapping phase that it is important to be making money. I'm not minimizing that, but you might have to get a part-time job in order to still lead with value and give, right? Like if you're always just chasing the dollar, the type of people you're going to be chasing aren't going to be in alignment with you. So I always say, go back to what is important to you. What are your core values? What are you bringing to the table and how are you leading with value?
So well said. That was wonderful. Thank you. That was great. Couldn't agree more. I totally agree. So why don't we take a look at your human design now, shall we?
Yes, this is my first time looking at it, so I'm excited.
So I always ask guests before the show, what do you have a question about, right? And your question was, how do I go the next level in your own business with the financial piece? So I'm going to bring up your chart. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll make it a little bit smaller. We're going to look at the body graph piece here. You are what's known as a projector. And projectors make up 21% of the population. You are definitely in the right work because projectors are truly the guides, the leaders, the consultants of humanity. The job of the projector is to use their profound, penetrative vision to guide the energy of other people towards a goal. And so you naturally know how to do that as a projector. One way to understand how the projector is different from other types in human design is if I draw this stick figure here, I'll do a side view. Your aura comes out like a nose, and then it's very shallow up the back of the body, so that your energy field moves forward and it penetrates right into whatever it's bumping into, other people's auras. So the benefit of this is that you can see the truth of things, but the challenge for you can be waiting to be invited, which I think you've also gotten the hang of. When you were sharing about after the 14th coffee date, driving home and thinking, wait a minute here, they're not even paying for my lunch, right? Like what's wrong with this picture? You were invited 14 times. And that invitation is an invitation. You saying yes to it gave you the data to figure out that next step. And this is often what I'm encouraging my projector clients to get a hang of is look for those invitations, even the invitations that maybe you think, be open to the invitations. So that's just a little bit about the projector, but your whole approach is to wait for the invitation. And then use your inner authority to make the decision. And for you, it's splenic authority, which is here. This is the spleen. And splenic authority is knowing. You're going to just know things. You'll know them instantly. You might have, a mental thought where you might have the hair stand up on the back of your neck. I mean, there's any different ways that you get information. The spleen only tells you once. And then it doesn't repeat itself. It's a survival part of us, and it's the home of our intuition. And you have gate 57, which is the intuition gate. So you're very, very intuitive. Now, what we're looking at here is basically a circuit board of you. What's colored in is your DNA map. And what is in white is not you. It's the not self. And we've got the design on the left, which essentially represents the knowledge of your body. It's your body intelligence. And then the personality is your mind. And the whole point of your mind is to do with it what you're doing, which is to communicate with other people and share your gifts with other people. Now, to your question about money, there's a couple places I look. First, I look to see if you have any of the money indicators, and you do. You have gate 14, which is known as power skills. And typically people with gate 14 are always learning new skills, which makes them very resourceful. In addition, it's an energetic thing you just have, so you always draw resources to you. A family that has someone with the gate 14, if they leave that family and no one else in the family has gate 14, the people could fall on hard times. The family could actually suffer a setback and not know why, because Johnny went off to college with his gate 14. So wherever you go, you're going to draw resources to you, Angela. You'll naturally draw in the support, the money that you need. So I say to people with gate 14, you really never need to worry about money. The key to this whole process of human design is essentially making correct decisions so you can eliminate resistance and then experience your signature. And each type has a signature. The signature for a projector is success, worldly success, which you're experiencing. And so the question for you in any invitation scenario is, does this make me feel successful? Whereas the other types have a different signature. So do I feel successful? And as long as that's yes, these resources just keep coming. And it's in red, it's coming from your design sun, which is essentially what keeps you healthy. What keeps you healthy is to build a community where the focus is prosperity. Right? To be in a community of prosperous people, but to also help people become prosperous. And when I was looking at your website, you mentioned there you're on a mission over the next several years to help over 2,000 business owners become prosperous. Well, that's just such a correct use of your energy. I mean, come on now, there it is, right? There it is. So you're on the right track with that. And then the other thing you've got going is this wonderful 44 connecting with the 26. So the spleen is genetically in your design connected over here to your heart, your physical heart. And that channel is a channel that in shorthand we call the entrepreneur channel. It's a channel that transforms things, but also understands how things need to be presented, designed, marketed so that your audience is interested. So you have the whole entrepreneur channel as well, which gives you a great advantage. And 26 is deal maker. It's a deal making energy, and you've got it in red and black, so it comes from both sides. We've got Neptune. I'll tell you what it means in a minute. We've got Neptune in 26, and we've got your personal Mercury and your design Neptune. So let's see, 1, 2, did I miss any 26? You have 3. You have 26 showing up 3 times. This doesn't always happen. Sometimes people just have whatever gates they have one time. So whenever a gate shows up multiple times, the emphasis is that much stronger. And 26 is about deal making. It is knowing how to negotiate, what questions to ask, right place, right time. You can sniff people out. You have a tremendous sense about people. That being said, you really ought not to do any big business deals with anyone you haven't met in person. Really important. And to shake their hand and get a whiff of them if you can without being too obvious about it. I mean, because you can smell their energy. You can smell the cleanliness or toxicity of their soul, if you will. And that enables you to do really good deals. Now, what's cool about this, what I really like about this, having it be in Neptune is about those parts of us that are unknown, that are mysterious, that are behind the veil. So this is an ability you have that's a bit like magic, probably even to you. You just know what to say and how to say it. And, you have it in Mercury, which is about how you personally communicate. And it's also about how you communicate with yourself. So one of the best ways to increase your prosperity is to speak to yourself about the strategies you're using to do deals. It's actually in your design to be masterful at the strategy of doing deals. And of course, teaching other people how to do deals. So there's that. This making sense so far?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool. Now, one of the things I teach, I have this class I teach called the Life Purpose Lab, and I do it every couple months. And one of the things that happens in the Life Purpose Lab is we look at our designs from a business perspective. And one of the key things in business is Mars on the design side. So when we're talking about the design, it's what your body automatically and unconsciously knows how to do, much like your reptile brain. Your body just knows how to do these things without you having to think about it. And your design Mars is what I call desk work. And our desk work, and this is true for anyone listening to the show, if you look at your chart, your design Mars is your desk work. It may not be the same desk work here as Angela, but you have desk work. So your desk work, Angela, is gate 5, line 3. Now, gate 5 is about discipline, having a fixed rhythm, being able to be consistent. I don't have that. I don't do 2 days the same way ever. I don't eat the same each day. I don't wake up the same time. I don't have that gate, so it doesn't matter. But to you, having a regular routine, having a rhythm, any of your clients who have gate 5, they need that to feel good. So you need this regular routine. So one of the things you're doing, and it's line 3, don't worry about this other number. That's a whole other conversation. But essentially, there's only the numbers after the decimal to the right of the decimal. They never go higher than 6. There's 6 different frequencies. So your line 3 is strategy, and it also has to do with money. So wherever you see a third line, and you have 1, 2 on this side, and do you have any on this side? 1 on that side. Yeah. So you have one of your 3s is in the realm of business. It is about providing strategy. And the main thing you're helping people do is get into a healthy rhythm, which you spoke to. And your business structure is gate 33, which is about retreat. So one thing that's super profitable for you is to take people on retreat, to go away from one's regular routine into a different immersive environment and connect with that environment to create transformation.
Funny, I run Australia's leading women in business retreat. So it's a sold out event every single year. So it's, I do regular VIP retreats regularly. So when when other coaches of mine say, Ange, you're exchanging time, right? Because it does take my time to go and do these retreats, but it's what lights me up. And it's also where I can see the most transformation in individuals, because I'm able to just sit with them, know them in and out, and just give them what they need in a very short amount of time to move them along quicker. People are like, yeah, but it's more of a one-to-one, or sort of more of I can only take on 5 or 6 people on any given kind of VIP retreat. And they're like, yeah, but you're going to cap your money. I'm like, yeah, but that feels like the right thing to do for me. Like, I'm not driven by 5,000 person launch or a 4,000 person launch. Like, I'm driven by connection. And so for me the retreats sell out every time, the big and the small one. And again, so I do it all the time.
Yeah. So to wrap up our show, I want to touch on that point with you about what you just raised, because I think it's so important. It's so apropos to the whole concept of human design and the concept of living our purpose, which is most of what we're taught about money and business actually comes from what's happening in the solar system, in the transits, which are changing. And the current transit we've been living under for, 400 plus years is bigger is better. Let's organize it and make it big. So most of us, especially in the West, we're conditioned into, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be a billionaire. Well, the fact is That's in no one's chart. No one's designed to be, and no one needs $1 million a month for that matter either, unless they're actually creating something with it. Then you get the money and then you can create with it. So my point being, most of us are designed to interact with other humans as our work. And this whole concept of getting away from having to do the actual work, that's fine if you're making hamburgers. But you're not a hamburger. I'm not a hamburger. I'm not here to be consumed. I'm a person. I do the consuming, but I am here to have a full life experience, which requires human interaction. And your design is about intimacy because you're a projector. You are at your best in one-to-one conversations or leading intimate groups of 12 to 15 people. And then having, for example, let's say you're doing a retreat. Ideally for you, you would meet with all of those people prior, maybe a couple times, and work with them. And then they meet in a group. Then you meet with them individually after, that type of thing. So I'm just really glad you brought it up because it is one of the things that I think leads to the burnout. And I just wonder what your thoughts are about that, because I too hear so much about, oh, you could leverage that. It's like, listen, I have software. I have as much leverage as I really want to leverage. I personally am not interested in being cut off from this kind of connection with people. I can't wait till we can start having live meetings again. It's really where I'm happiest, right? Is going to conferences and leading conferences. That's what I like to do. That's my joy. And I think it is for a lot of us. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that mentality about, really, there's only a small percentage of people who are millionaires, right? But the ads, even in fairness, like I will say, do you want to get to 4 and 5 figure months and on to 6 and 7 figures? Because there are some people who do want that for,
of course.
Like I do want to be a millionaire so that I can leave a bigger legacy and do whatever. However, I don't want to be a millionaire at the compromise. I need to go when I go and I'm dead. I want people at my funeral going, she was a giver, she was a connector. She took time to understand, and that's like who I am, what I do, etc. Even in my mastermind and my accelerator, there's about 60 people in one. I know who's on those calls and who isn't, and I'm taking notes. And then my team and I reach out to them and go, hey, we haven't seen you on the calls for the last couple of weeks. Are you and your family okay? People are not just a number to me. And I wouldn't be able to do that with an intake of 5,000 people. But there's this push to make the 6 and 7 figures. There's this, not even bro marketing. I think females are doing it too, right? That be the millionaire. But what if people are just happy with making 100K a year, right? And they're just content and it brings them joy. Why is there always this push that there has to be more? And I do think that's where it's leading to burnout, because people are consuming content, they're consuming Facebook ads, they're consuming, I work with people who are making way more money than me, millions of dollars. And people have said, but you haven't cracked it for yourself in this particular business. And I'm like, because I'm going at a slower pace. What's wrong? It doesn't mean I don't have the skills. A client of mine just sent me a message last night. She started working with me. She's making about 65 to 70K a month. She said, Ange, I really want to crack the million this year because she's got bigger plans. I said, okay, well, what do we need to look at? And whatever. And she screenshotted me last night. She said, Ange, not only did we do 83, because we need about 83K a month to make the $1 million mark. She's like, we've got 7 days left in the month and we've hit 117K, right? But what has she done? She has worked on her internal stuff. She's worked on money blocks. She's worked on a variety of other things that is now allowing more abundance to come in, right? And also because what she wants to do with it, I'm assuming the world is giving her the resource, AKA the money, the gateway to be able to go and do those things, right? But she's also put it out to the universe that, hey, I'm ready to do this now and I'm ready to receive, right? Like it's a whole other conversation we could have, but everything is intertwined. So yes, I do think, to go back to kind of wrap that loophole back, because I do think people are burning out because there's this notion that you have to be a millionaire or else you're not successful.
Right.
And in my opinion, success needs to be defined by you. And that's why I go back to my clients. What is it that you want? Not what people are telling you want. What do you genuinely want to live the life that you want? And then we come up with a number, and then I can reverse engineer what type of programs or what type of offerings do we need to make that number. And it isn't just a 7-figure number.
Right. Precisely. I mean, here's the thing. I'm not in any way opposed to people making 7, 8, 9 figures, whatever they want to make. I think we're in agreement that really the goal is to feel fulfilled. And if that's missing, all the money in the world isn't going to give you more time with your children if you've squandered that, or give your health back to you the way it was before you destroyed it from overworking. So that's one thing human design has shown me, is that the majority of us are here to intimately interact with other people and be very attentive to those details of the interaction as you described. So,
and you
I'm
just said something key there, is that there's B2B marketing, B2C marketing, and then there's this one that I really love, and I didn't make it up. It's been around for a while, but it's not talked about. It's human to human marketing, and it's about creating the experience and interaction one faces with a particular brand. I feel, and I talk about this regularly on podcasts, I call it the lost art of human to human marketing. I believe people are losing the ability to connect with audience, and therefore, why am I not making more? Well, you've lost that skill, right? You're trying to automate too much, and you need to be able to have an experience and an interaction with a brand in order for them. So in my opinion, and again, I could talk about this forever, is if you're not creating experiences and interactions, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're going to start to get left behind for those businesses who are. And I believe kind of like the old will be the new again. I'm not necessarily saying phone books will come back, but what I'm saying is that ability for independent individuals buy because they feel heard, right? Quote unquote. But actually they need to feel seen is what it needs. And then the word feel is there. They need to feel that someone is seeing them and hearing them. It's not just about know, like, and trust. And people are forgetting that element in their business significantly. And I think it will start to backfire in the upcoming years. It's already starting, but even more so, especially with COVID.
Yeah, I totally agree. So any final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Listen, I could talk forever, like I said, but for me is really go back to what brings you joy, right? Like you really, truly need to assess, like when people say to me, I want to make more money. Okay. I want to have more freedom. Okay. Then I say, what would having more money and more freedom allow to have in your world that you don't currently have? Because that other stuff is the external stuff. But when I ask the question, what would it have in your life that you don't currently have? And then they talk about creating memories with my kids, going on holiday and not being on my phone. That's what they truly want, right? So go back and peel those layers off and truly ask yourself, what would whatever you want, X, Y, and Z, allow you to have in your life that you don't currently have? And that's really what you want to be kind of gauging and guiding what you're doing and not doing. Thank you, Angela. Yes, no worries. Thank you so much for having me. You're so welcome. All right, everyone, this has been another episode of Aligned to Design. If you want to connect with Angela, all her links are in the show notes. If you like the show, please share it, leave a review, spread the word about what Angela's doing. And if you resonate with her, reach out to her team, and find out how she can support you in overcoming your own money blocks and going to that next level. Thank you again, Angela. This is a pleasure. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. You too.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Aligned to Your Design. If you did, please grab my free report, Business by Design, at yourpurpose.com, and then join our Facebook group, Align to Your Design. See you next time.